Hi there. Today we're going to talk about the string section in the orchestra. So remember that string instruments have strings that produce the sound. So the strings vibrate, make them vibrate by bowing, plucking, strumming, striking, or however you make them vibrate, and then that produces the sound. Most of the string instruments have some sort of resonating chamber, which is usually the body of the instrument. So, like the violin, it's right here. You have the body of the instrument that right there. Inside is hollow. All these instruments are hollow, and so the sound waves come up from the string. They go inside the wood of the instrument, bounce around, and come out, and then they sound beautiful. So the type of wood, the size of the instrument, the amount of space there is to bounce around, that all affects the sound of the instrument, the quality of the sound. Okay, so the first string instrument we're going to talk about is the violin, which is the highest string instrument we have in the orchestra. There are more violins than any other instrument in the orchestra, and they're usually divided into two sections. You've got the first violins and the second violins, and there's no difference in the actual instrument, just in the part that they're playing. So it just takes a lot of violins to make the sound loud enough to hear. And then are just really interested in playing the violin. So there's a lot more violin players, and they're really good at playing a melody and adding a lot of elements to the music. So there's lots of reasons to have lots of instruments, lots of them in the orchestra. All right. So we hold it on our shoulder. We have a shoulder rest that sits on your shoulder on the bottom of the instrument. We've got the chin rest here. It's kind of more of a jaw rest. You just lay your head in there and you play. This is the bow. This is kind of how you hold it. This white material here is horsehair. Horsehair has lots of bristles on it that help catch the string to just cause more friction to let the string vibrate more. Okay, so I'm going to play a clip for you about the violin so you can kind of hear the quality of the sound. So here we go. Okay, so that is the violin. All right, next we've got the viola. The viola and the violin are very, very similar, but the viola is bigger and it's a little bit lower. So the violin has one string higher and the viola has one string lower. They both have four strings. Sorry, my cat is being naughty. All right, so. Hi. Okay, go away. All right. So the viola is a small full-size viola is about 14 inches long. They can go all the way up to 17 to 18 inches long. And a full-size violin is 12 inches long. So they're not just horribly different in size, but it is a noticeable difference. And then they have different strings. So the viola and the cello, which we'll look at next, have the same string names in the same order. They're just an octave apart, which means there's 8 notes in between each string. So the strings are about twice as big on a cello than they are on, if not bigger, on a viola. Okay, so the viola, it tends to play kind of maybe some slower, more harmony stuff. It doesn't get the melody a lot, but it's just a beautiful instrument. That's what I've played in the symphony before. Symphony's not playing right now because of all the madness, but it's really a fun instrument to play. So here's the viola. It just has a richer sound quality to it. The violin will tend to be a little bit brighter in sound, and the viola will be a little warmer and richer. And so if you're interested, the website that I'm on is the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and you can look it up if you want to kind of explore different instruments and other resources they have on here, or listen to any of these sounds again, okay? All right. The next instrument we have is the cello. So the cello is way bigger than the violin or the viola. It's about 4 feet tall with the end pin out. The end pin is this metal thing coming out the end of the instrument, and it makes it so that you can adjust it to your height. It needs to sit with the bottom. It's called a bout. The body of the instrument here, the bouts on the bottom, need to kind of sit in between the knees, and the knees don't really squeeze. They just kind of balance the instrument, and then it should come up to. It kind of rests up against the top of your body and stuff like that. Sorry, she's being weird. All right. Um, you use a bow the same way that you do with a violin or viola, except for you are bowing kind of parallel to the floor instead of perpendicular to the floor. All right. So the cello has a huge range. It can go very low, but it can also go very, very high. And so it's used a lot in different kinds of music, popular music, movies, all sorts of stuff, because it's just so unique and so beautiful sounding. It has a very rich quality to it, even more so than the viola. Okay. So you can tell right away that the violin and the viola are definitely higher sounding strings, and the cello is a lower sounding string, and the bass is definitely lower sounding. So here is the bass. The bass is more closely related to the guitar than it is to the violin, viola, cello, but it is included in the symphony. Just the way that the strings are tuned is more like the guitar than it is the other string instruments. So the bass, it has an end pin, but it's significantly smaller than the cello end pin because the instrument is so much bigger. The instrument is about 6 feet tall, and it's kind of awkward to move it around, but it's not terribly heavy because remember the inside is hollow. The strings are very large because they're very low, but the bass does not play the lowest note in the orchestra. It's not even close, actually. It's about 5 notes away from the lowest instrument, from the lowest note in the orchestra. I think that some students get the bass, both the bass, the tuba, and the contrabassoon. They're very, very low instruments, and it can be a little bit harder for our ears to hear. And so it's very common to get them mixed up right now, is what I'm finding. So just listening for the change in the bow, the change in the the bow direction. So when they change directions, you can usually hear that. And then both the tuba and the contrabassoon are wind instruments. So you're listening for the breathing. So if you just kind of find the quality, you're looking for that string quality, not the air quality. If hopefully that makes sense. Like you can hear the friction of the bow on the string, and when they're changing bow direction and stuff like that. So I guess that's kind of what I've. It's hard for me to know how to describe it just because it sounds like a bass to me. So trying here. All right, and just because it's a low instrument does not mean that it can't play fast. It tends to play a lot of long notes, but they sound really good. All right, and then we also have the harp. And so the harp is a very welcome addition to a symphony. It's just not necessarily an easy instrument to come by. They're very expensive, they're very large, and it's just not a common instrument for people to play. So if you can find a harp player, there, there's lots of music written for harp. It's hard to find a harp player these days. So because you can't, unless you spend a bunch of money on it or you inherit one, it's hard to kind of lug a harp around or have one at home to play on. So lots of stuff like that. The harp is very large. It's over 6 feet tall and it has 47 strings. The piano has 88 keys. And so the piano has more notes, but you can see that it's not that far off from the harp. The strings are tuned to the white keys on the piano, and it has pedals that help change the notes, like so you can get the other notes that are in there, like the block keys, if you need them. Some of the strings are colored to help tell them apart, which we're going to watch a video in just a little bit. You can see that there are some different string colors. The piano, the harp and the piano, the music looks very similar, and they're played in similar ways, except for with the piano, you're pressing down on the key. With the harp, you're plucking the strings. The harp is the only one of all of these instruments that I've never played before that we're talking about. Besides our bonus instruments, I've never played the bonus instruments. So we haven't gotten to any bonus instruments yet. So the harp, the piano, the keys on the piano have a pattern to it. So that's kind of how you tell where you're at on there. Each key looks different. And then they repeat over and over again up and down the piano. And so with the harp, there aren't any reference points. That's why the strings are colored. I wouldn't even know where to begin with the harp. It's pretty though. Okay, so here is some harp sounds. Okay. Okay, so the harp. Okay, now you can't, just because we're talking about string instruments in the orchestra doesn't mean that we don't care about other string instruments. So there are guitars, there's acoustic guitars. This is a classical acoustic guitar. This is an electric guitar. If you play an electric guitar without it plugged in, it's not very loud because the body of the instrument is solid. And so there's nothing to help resonate the sound. So that's just kind of a big difference between the resonance comes from the pickups and the electricity, and that it literally picks up the sound and puts it through the amp and the speakers. Anyway, that's too much. That's too technical. Sorry, I take it back. You've got the electric bass, which is the exact same thing as the upright bass, except for this one is on a guitar frame instead, and then it has frets, just like a guitar or a ukulele. There's a ukulele, banjo, mandolin. There are lots and lots of string instruments out there. Okay.